This month's Literacy Focus of the Month in Action focuses on screening and diagnostic assessments. Before we begin, let's pause to take a look at the vision and the mission statements set forth by the MDE's State Board of Education. The vision: to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce, and to flourish as parents and citizens. The mission: to provide leadership through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in the global community. The State Board of Education's 5-year strategic plan and goals for 2016 through 2021 are as follows. All students proficient and showing growth in all assessed areas. Every student graduates high school and is ready for college and career. Every child has access to a high-quality early childhood program. Every school has effective teachers and leaders. And every community effectively using a world-class data system to improve student outcomes. The agenda for this month's Literacy Focus is as follows. We want to discuss the purpose of the video, of course. We want to review the Mississippi State Board policy regarding screening and diagnostics assessments, reviewing essential criteria for assessments, understanding how to use STAR data to make instructional decisions, discussing the importance of interactive data walls, and finally discussing tips for accessing secondary students. The purpose of this month's Literacy Focus is to provide guidance to administrators and teachers for supporting a monthly school-wide instructional focus based on best practices and research-based strategies in literacy. The focus for August, again, is screening and diagnostic assessments. As relates to Mississippi State Board Policy, Rule 41.1, Paragraph 7, all kindergarten to third grade students shall be administered a state-approved screener within the first 30 days of school. The screener is repeated mid-year and again at the end of the school year for progress monitoring and to determine if deficiencies have been remedied. Let's take a look at the Mcats Model. MCAS, of course, is an acronym for Mississippi Kindergarten through Third Grade Assessment Support System. When we look at this model, there are 3 components that fall underneath. The first component being the Universal Screener, which is STAR. Component 2, the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment. And Component 3, the Third Grade Reading Summative Alternate Assessment. It's important to note just a few things. Students in kindergarten to third grade identified through the beginning of the year universal screener whose results are below grade level should be assessed to determine targeted instructional support. We want to identify the deficiencies within those students. Senate Bill 2572 requires all kindergarten students to be assessed using the Kindergarten Readiness Assessment at the beginning and end of each year. These are your pre- and post-assessments. Beginning in 2016-2017, that school year, the MAP ELA Grade 3 assessment will determine third grade promotion and retention, and the third grade reading summative assessment, which we call the Renaissance Learning Assessment or the third grade reading gate, will become the alternative assessment. Let's take a moment to focus on assessment checklists. When getting ready to assess students, you want to think about the following. Does the assessment enable me to determine what students know and understand about specific aspects of learning? Does the assessment reflect the personal and cultural strengths of our students as well as their learning needs? How is the assessment aligned with the curriculum and standards? And does the assessment provide useful data to us and the student or family about what the student understands and what needs to be learned? Mississippi has provided a suite of assessments for K through 3 through Renaissance Learning. The suite of assessments will be utilized during the middle of the school year, end of the school year, and beginning of the school year, of course. It's also noteworthy to mention that these assessments are not only limited to students in grades K through 3, although those are what we provide as the state, but they're also useful for students in middle and high school. When facilitating data meetings, each teacher is responsible for bringing their data binders to the meeting. In the fall or the beginning of the year, a couple of reports that are useful are the Screening Diagnostic Report, Summary Report, Instructional Class Planning Report, where all students can be placed in flexible groups by using this report. In the middle of the year, the Winter Screener, the Screening Diagnostic Report, the Summary Report, and again, the Instructional Class Planning Report, where flexible groups may be manipulated at this time based on growth or regression. And at the end of the year, in the spring, the Screening Report, reviewing the third grade students who need intensive intervention and remediation, who did not pass the third grade summative assessment, or who need additional remediation in order to focus on passing the third grade reading summative assessment. When planning and goal setting, examine all data and discuss the following. Are all students receiving differentiated instruction in your teacher-led group? Have you identified students' rate of growth? Are urgent intervention and intervention students receiving interventions and progress monitoring through RTI? Are on-watch and at or above students receiving enrichment and additional support? And which students are receiving Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction? Discuss how your flexible and small groups have changed, and discuss how you are differentiating instruction based on your data. Some useful data reports to take a look at during your data meetings. The STAR Early Literacy Diagnostic Report. This report gives explicit directions for assessing and printing the STAR reports included in the binder. It also allows you to take a look at data for all students and their most recent assessments. Data includes the student's age, test data, grade placement, scale scores, subdomain scores, and literacy classifications. The Instructional Planning Report generates the median score and the range for each group. It provides suggested skills for each group based on the median scale score. The State Standards Class Report estimates mastery of students on Common Core state standards. It identifies students above mastery, within mastery, or below mastery for each of the state standards. The Student Progress Monitoring Report. Each time a student takes a test, their scale score is depicted on the graph as a blue diamond. After 4 assessments, a black trend line is displayed. The goal line is shown in green. The intervention is changed. If the intervention is changed, that is indicated by a red line. So again, a blue diamond, black trend line, the goal line is shown in green, and if the intervention is changed, that is indicated by a red line. The Growth Report. The Growth Report enables you to compare data from 2 universal screening assessments to each student in a class or for an individual student. The data shown on this report includes the student growth percentile, scaled score, grade equivalent, percentile rank, norm, curve equivalent, instructional reading level, estimated oral reading fluency, and Lexile measure for each student on each test, as well as the change between the tests. The report also includes the change for the class as a whole and in each of those areas as well. Now that we've looked at the reports, let's discuss interactive data walls. The purpose of data walls is to provide a visual interactive representation of data showing students over time, to identify trends for strengths and weaknesses in the school, each grade, or for certain student populations. The data wall is a living display because the data will be updated and manipulated over a certain period of time. Collaborative exchange of ideas and intervention and teaching strategies must take place, and displaying individual student cards to decrease the chance of losing a student in the system. So this is just a way of having a visual for progress monitoring students and their progression and or regression throughout the school year. The Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA, is a federal law that protects the privacy of student education records. It applies to all schools that receive federal funds. It gives parents rights regarding their children's education records. The rights transfer to the student at the age of 18. The most important takeaway here is that data walls and student-sensitive information such as names and things of that nature should not be kept in public view. Here's a sample of a data card. You see space for the student's name, any IEP-related data such as ELL, gifted, speech, any special services. There's a place to indicate the student's data at beginning, middle, and end of the year. Progress monitoring, the grade in the classroom, and then to keep up with things such as absences that may affect a student's progress within the classroom. Here we've included a picture of a sample data wall. Again, you can see that with use of star reading, the data wall has been set up according to color: red, yellow, blue, and then green for those students that are at and above grade level. Another thing that is important to mention is that the teacher's name should be placed on top of the wall or on top of that section of the wall so that we can identify who those students belong to in particular. Suggested data points for secondary students. Testing older students specifically on phonological awareness measures does not add power to the identification of reading and spelling deficiencies. If an older student is not a fluent reader, it is important to assess decoding to determine if the student has a deficit in sound symbol correspondence. Direct measures of academic skills will also provide the most accurate data for planning instruction. And secondary schools may use the district level's common assessments as tools for gathering baseline data and progress monitoring. A few other tips. Other assessment types to consider are passage reading comprehension, oral reading fluency, vocabulary knowledge, word recognition for speed and accuracy, and knowledge of phoneme, grapheme, sound symbol relationships, syllables, and morphology, the units of meaning. Screeners to identify gaps in foundational skills include DIBELS, star reading, MAP, Advanced Plus Decoding Survey, Quick Phonics Screener, San Diego Quick Fluency Assessment, and the State Education Resource Center for Secondary Education in Colorado has a wealth of assessments that may be used for additional screening and diagnostics among older students. For students requiring behavior support in screeners, the following may be useful. PBIS, or Positive Behavior Interventions and Support. That additional information can be secured through the National Technical Assistance Center with the web address shown, as well as PBIS videos at the web address shown. The Functional Behavior Assessment, we've also listed that web address for additional guidance and information. And then Reducing Behavior Problems in the Elementary Classroom. Again, that document contains a wealth of knowledge as far as classroom management and behavior problems are concerned. Both the MDE Literacy website and our Stronger Readers website provide a wealth of resources for teachers, administrators, and parents related to literacy. And finally, our contact information. If there are any questions, concerns, or additional guidance needed, you may contact any of the individuals listed here on this slide. Greetings. My name is Patrice Williams. I'm an educator in residence serving as a regional literacy coordinator supporting MCAS. This month's video segment focuses on screening and diagnostic assessments. During this segment, we will provide practical guidance on facilitating data meetings and effectively utilizing data walls. Our primary focus in this video is utilization of STAR reading and STAR early literacy data. When utilizing STAR reading and STAR early literacy, your data wall should be set up based on your screening report. Let's take a look at the data wall. You can see that the wall has been set up according to color. Red reflecting urgent intervention, yellow reflecting intervention, blue for students who are on watch, and green for students who are at or above grade level. When notating the data on the data wall, it is important that you use data cards. Your data cards may vary from the one I will show you today. However, it's important to know that a data card should give detailed information regarding each student. Let's take a look at the sample I've prepared for you. On this data card, we've noted our student, Jessica Doe, Jessica's teacher's name, Miss Wells, and Jessica's grade level, which is 2nd grade. For this STAR reading assessment, Jessica scored a scale score of 144. As a result, I've placed the yellow dot on the card, and she would go in the intervention category as Jessica's baseline data for the beginning of the school year. Now let's talk about data meetings. Data meetings will be used to discuss the data which has been plotted on the data wall. Before beginning these meetings, it is important to determine a few logistics: the frequency of each meeting, the time or length of each meeting, and it's also important to designate a facilitator who will lead each meeting. There are also a few materials that you must bring to each meeting. The most important is the data binder. Teachers, please bring your data binder to each data meeting. We simply can't waste time searching for binders or printing out reports. Within your data binder, there should be a few essential reports, such as the screening report, your growth or summary report, your class instructional planning report, and as the year goes on, the student progress monitoring report. During these meetings, you will discuss students' growth or regression and then devise a plan of action as to how to better serve each student. Let's take a look at the data wall again and see how we will use a student progress monitoring report to plot data throughout the year. Now, let's take a look at Jessica again. After our initial beginning of the year screener and progress monitoring, Jessica now has a scale score of 163. I'll plot on the data card 163. And another yellow dot will be placed on the data card as well to indicate that Jessica has shown growth. However, she's still in the intervention category. Although a student grew, she wasn't able to move into a completely different category as we would like for her to, but growth has been shown. In the next section, you'll see an actual data meeting as it occurs. You'll see teachers in action as they discuss strategies to help improve student growth on the screeners.
All right, teachers, welcome to today's data meeting. We're going to be looking at our progress monitoring data that you all just collected last week from your students. Before we get started though, I want to look and see, kind of review last month's chart that we completed so that we can use this and then look at our data to see, did this work? What do we need to do differently? Okay, so we started by saying, what are we going to do differently to address our students in intervention? We noticed when we did our beginning of the year screener, we had a lot of our kids in 2nd grade in the yellow. So we really were focusing on the intervention piece. We talked about starting small groups. We also said we were going to start some explicit phonics lessons. We noticed when we looked at the reports, phonics was kind of lacking. We also said we were going to start reading some leveled text so we could boost them up and kind of catch them up. We were going to challenge our green students, those at and above babies, with literature circles, doing some standards instruction at those higher levels. We had some kids that were really high, so we want to make sure we're challenging them. And we were going to do some close reads with text-dependent questions. We talked about using West Virginia Phonics as a research strategy for our phonics component, and then also looking at that morphology, the affixes, for our explicit vocabulary. We also wanted to do some fluency with partner reading, so that was something we talked about starting and that we've been doing the past month. We did say that all of this was going to influence our small group instruction by adding that phonics component and adding the vocabulary piece, what we're doing whole group, putting it in the small group, so there's a connection. And we also were going to start small group instruction. That's a huge piece. So this is what we've been doing the past month, looking at the data. We're still seeing a lot of kids in the yellow. So today, what I want to do is I want to have some conversation about what's going on with these babies. So does anyone have a specific example of a child that they want to talk about?
I do.
Okay.
I have one student, Jessica. And when Jessica did the BOY, her baseline, she had a scale score of 144. So
Okay.
she was intervention. And then with the first progress monitoring, she had 163 scale score.
Okay.
Not as much growth as I would like to see, still intervention. So my concern is what can I do to kind of boost her and get her moving along?
Great question. We're going to look at that. And what I'm kind of seeing, I noticed you all looked at your data yesterday.
Yeah.
I want to see, we've seen some growth, but not what we're expecting
Right.
with what work we've been doing.
It's growth, but still in the yellow.
It's still, exactly. So we want to talk today, looking at our reports, what do we need to change that we've been doing to really boost our kids? Because while we're still seeing some growth, it's not the growth we want. We want more growth. So what are we going to do to move these kids out of the yellow? So let's look at what we've been doing, and let's talk about what we need to change, looking at our data to meet those needs. So last month we started small groups. Talk to me about the small groups. How's that going? How frequently are you all doing small groups?
Well, we're only doing them a couple of days a week. So
Okay.
we all met and decided that it would probably be a good idea if we maybe tried to do those more frequently. So
Definitely.
what about 4 days a week? Is that enough?
4 days a week would be a great start. And let's make sure also that we're meeting with multiple groups a day. I noticed from observations, you all are only meeting 1, maybe 2 groups a day. That's not going to get our kids what they need. So let's try to meet with maybe all of our students or at least 3 groups. That's most of our class
Right.
every day. And maybe we only need to meet with our green babies once or twice a week. But these kids in the yellow, we need to be seeing them daily, okay? So let's add that.
Another thing, we've been kind of meeting with them at least maybe about 20 minutes,
Okay.
with each group. Do you think that's good, or do you think we need to extend our time with these groups?
You're meeting with them 20 minutes total for small group time or
Per group.
On the
per
days
group?
that we meet.
I think that that's a good amount of time, the 20 minutes. As long as you're able to get their needs, I don't see that being a problem. Some of your groups, your higher kids might not need that much time. Your lower kids, if you're having to add more components into your small group, they might need 30 minutes. So we're gonna see what exactly they need, and we can figure out a schedule for timing based on that, okay? Okay, so I've got more frequent small groups 4 times a week, and we're going to see more groups a day. Okay, good. Let's talk about that explicit phonics lesson. You all have been using West Virginia Phonics. I've been seeing it's going really well, but what might be a problem we're having here?
I think that maybe we need to go back and do phonics screeners on our students to see exactly where those gaps are.
Great, because one thing, when I looked at the data, when I was looking at your instructional planning reports, I was seeing that you have trends where babies from the screener at the beginning of the year still had the same gaps this time. So I think going back and doing that screener, the phonics screener, would be a great idea so we could see what do they really need, and then we can pull those exact lessons to do with them at small group. All right, and then reading level text. Talk to me about that.
Well, I think we've just been reading, working on trying to build a fluency piece.
Okay.
But I haven't really been working on those probing questions and text-dependent questions, trying to build comprehension.
Great. Okay, and I did notice, I'm sure you all saw too, comprehension, we had some gaps there. I think adding the text-dependent questions would be a great strategy.
And then also making sure that there's some variety with the genre of
Yes.
the level of text that we're choosing too, because I know in my room we've been leaning more toward literature. I need to get some of that information text in there as well.
Definitely. And one thing also to keep in mind when we're choosing those text-dependent questions is to use our instructional planning report to see what our kids need in comprehension. And that'll lead you to determine what questions to ask with the text you're using. Okay? Great. All right, so how are we going to challenge our at and above students? How have the lit circles been going?
Good. Been good.
There, go. You want to continue the lit
Yeah,
circles?
let's continue.
Okay.
The kids are really enjoying that.
All right, and then I noticed that you all have been using your standards, that your kids that are at that third, fourth grade level in second grade, you've been asking them those higher order thinking questions. I noticed looking at the data that their comprehension scores have boosted. So that's something we probably want to look again and see what changes there are in the data and come up with some new questions that we can focus on, or new standards we could focus on. But how do you all feel that that's been going? The data doesn't lie.
Yeah,
The data
it's
says it's going well.
It's
So we
going
wanna
well.
keep
And I'm
that.
even thinking maybe if we try that with those kids that we were talking about in urgent intervention, like you said,
Mhm.
that would really boost that too. So maybe, you know, what we're doing with them, we could just kind of, you know,
Yes.
tone it down a little bit.
Yes.
Focus on
Scale
those
it
kids.
I completely agree. If we set that higher level, even with our intervention kids, they're going to rise to the level we set for them. So I'm going to draw an arrow even over here to kind of show it's been working well over here. Let's try the same strategy. I'm going to draw an arrow. I'm going to put raise the bar because they will come up. All right. And then close reads with those text dependent questions. How's that going?
Really good.
Really well. So is that something we want to continue?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Is there anything new we want to try with our high kids? I mean, they're showing really great growth. So you all talk to me. Is there anything you've seen that you want to try, a new strategy you've read about or you're interested in that we could start doing?
I think that's good for now. It's been working.
That works.
Yeah.
I think let's
Since we're seeing
yeah,
growth.
since we're seeing growth with that,
I love
let's
it.
continue.
Sounds great. All right, so let's look back at our intervention babies. We've got so many of them. Let's talk some research-based strategies. What are we going to use with our kids to help move them out of that intervention piece?
We can use the quick Phonics Screener
Okay?
to do the screener, and then we'll still use the West Virginia Phonics in our
And that'll allow us to see exactly what, you know, what we need to pull with West Virginia
Yes.
Phonics.
All right, so quick Phonics Screener with West Virginia Phonics, putting those two puzzle pieces together to really provide a good foundation. What else are we going to use?
I think what we've already talked about with the explicit vocabulary and teaching that morphology is working.
Okay.
And that we do need to continue that.
And I've noticed coming in your rooms that your kids are really enjoying the activities you all are doing and the anchor charts you all are building with the word families with those affixes that you're doing. So that's really great. Anything else that we want to try with research-based strategies with our students?
I think the text dependent
Yeah,
questions
We definitely need to do something with that.
are for comprehension.
What about, you know, putting them on sticky notes prior to the reading or guided reading, so we know exactly what questions can be asked on what page, and it's
Right.
a reference for the teacher, so it's not, we're not having to think on hand. You know, we've got it planned out.
Yes, I
So
love
maybe
that.
using those sticky notes.
I don't know, yeah.
That also allows you with that pre-planning to use your data to go back and pull those reports, see where do I need to be pulling text-dependent questions from, what standards need the most
Right.
focus, and then
we
you can
can
target
Yeah.
with this. Great. Anything else we want to add here?
I think that's good. I think that's a great start.
Great. All right, so last piece, how will this influence our small group instruction?
Well, one thing we've already pointed out, we're going to start seeing our groups more frequently throughout the week.
Yes.
From where we were doing about 2 days a week, now 4 days a week. So that's one thing.
So we need more time to meet with those small, not time in each group, but more
More
time
time
out of our
in the group.
schedule for small groups.
And by doing the screener that Natalie spoke of, we'll be able to pinpoint exactly what skill
Yes.
in phonics that they're going to need. And then we can pull those West Virginia phonics skills into focus, the lessons to focus on those specific skills.
And I think what you all will see is now that we will have an idea of which exact skill we need, we're able to meet them at their level and fill those gaps, pull them up faster to meet their needs. Anything else?
I think that just overall we'll find that small groups now will be more meaningful because we now have a plan to execute as far as helping those students.
I love it. All right. Anything else you all want to add to your charts?
I think they look great. I'm excited about going forward with this plan.
Yes. And what we'll do the next time we meet in PLC is we'll just have a quick time to talk and see how's it going. You all will progress monitor again at the beginning of next month, and we'll have another data meeting. We'll reevaluate and see what do we need to do to change, what do we need to keep. I'm really hoping to see more gains. I'm really hoping to see more with Jessica as well because she's done that little bit, but I know that we can really boost her up. All right? All right, ladies, thank you.
Thank you.
Now that we've looked at setting up data walls, data cards, establishing policies and procedures for data meetings, and progress monitoring, you should be well on your way to using screenings and diagnostics to guide instruction in your classrooms this school year.